was a very inspiring TED Talk, which is also being shown at most of the other ISAS sites today. My name is Sinclair Spratley, and I'm here to announce our next exciting presentation titled Wilderness Experience, which will be presented by United World College seniors Morgante Pell and Nico Grubert.
Hello, I'm Morgante Pell from Vermont.
And I'm Nico from Germany.
And we're both second-year students at UWC, which is United World College. And we are both going to be graduating this year, but we're also, in addition to studying, getting ready for college and that sort of thing, wilderness leaders, which means throughout the year, we bring students out on expeditions and allow them the opportunity to experience the beauty that is New Mexican wilderness and the connectivity which comes with it. It's integral, in fact, to our school that we have this wilderness because it brings together our school through the community. Now, in this school, we have students from all over the world. Everywhere that there's a TEDx presentation today, there's also probably a student at our school from there. In fact, over 70 different countries are represented at our school, and these are from all different ideological, religious, cultural, language backgrounds, yet we're expected to live and study together for 2 years. In fact, within a month of arriving on campus, students are expected to go into classes and begin studying in an English, which they might never have studied before, as well as interacting and living with peers from different backgrounds. Now, how do we do this? How do we give people the opportunity to really function effectively and build a community so rapidly when there's so many different stressors and so many different things that are coming onto them? Personally, Nico and I think that wilderness is integral to that. In fact, within a week of arriving out on campus, in many cases, the first time that students are in the United States, we bring them out on a wilderness expedition. So not only have they been thrown into a new culture, they've also been thrown into a new idea that we're going to go out, sleep outside, sleep on the ground, sleep underneath the stars. And this allows us all to have equalizers. Because while we might be from, say, Tokyo, Shanghai, Sydney, Paris, many students have not gone outside, and they can share in that experience of being the first time that they are out on a 2 to 3 day expedition and learning together in a small group of 6 to 10 students without necessarily any adults involved, and thus building a cohesive foundation of friends for their entire experience, 2-year experience at the college. Now, this tradition has a grand history at UWC, which Nico will talk a little more about.
So, since the founding of the school in 1982, wilderness has been around at UWC USA and has taken a great part in the school extracurriculum. And it just takes students out there and exposes them to the new environment in a very unique way. And what we kind of want to talk about is not only the cross-cultural aspect, but also how it draws back to the ideas of our founding father, Kurt Hahn. Kurt Hahn founded the United World College movement in 1962 by opening of Atlantic College in Wales. And he's a German educationalist, and he wanted to reform education. And he puts down 4 stages of becoming an effective leader. So that's what we're doing through wilderness as well at our school. In the first semester, you come, stage 1, to kind of learn and get exposed to the subject. In stage 2, semester 2, you get taught how to, all the skills that you need in order to lead. And in stage 3, you're going actually out there and lead other students and get the experience that you need in order to become an effective leader. And in stage 4, you give to other students, to the younger students, what you know, and then provide your knowledge to them and learn how to do that effectively as well. And Kurt Hahn also puts out 6 declines of modern youth due to our modern society. And that's why we want to draw back on wilderness as well, too. So the first decline of youth is the decline of fitness. And that's mostly due to modern ways of locomotion. And by getting people out there and having all the stuff they need on their back, in their backpack, having them to carry all the stuff and be responsible for them, wilderness is acting against this decline.
Now, the second decline that Kurt Hahn talks about is the decline of initiative and enterprise due to what he calls the widespread disease of spectatoritis. And this is the idea that so much of what we do today is just driven by looking at something, watching somebody else do something. In fact, the average American watches over 4 hours of television a day. Now, this is not active. This is not actively thinking or engaging with ideas. It's simply looking out and seeing something. Now, we think that wilderness allows us to seize initiative and enterprise because there really isn't any opportunity to be a spectator. This whole time that you're in wilderness, you're always doing something, whether it's actively walking along, hiking, or is it just actively looking out and appreciating a landscape and thinking about where your place is in that. Now, the other way that that wilderness helps us to counteract the decline of initiative and enterprise is the idea that wilderness provides students with the opportunity to truly be leaders. In fact, I like to compare wilderness to an effective small team, small business situation. You really have a leader in charge who's trying to lead the whole expedition, but they can't do everything. They have to delegate certain tasks, yet still make sure that everything happens, so everyone has to be functioning cohesively as a group in order that we have a good time and enjoy ourselves out there. Because really, if something goes wrong, it's up to students to fix it. Whether that's just someone being homesick and not having a good time, that's up to the wilderness leader to talk to that student, figure out how they can have a better expedition, or something much more serious, like a illness or any other injuries that happen on the expedition students are responsible for fixing that. You can't just step back. You have to be actively monitoring your entire team to see both their mental and their physical condition. And therefore, there's no way to have the spectatoritis that Kurt Hahn identifies during wilderness expeditions.
So the next decline of youth that Kurt Hahn is talking about is the decline of memory and imagination. And mostly due to the restlessness of our minds nowadays. And so the idea of wilderness is to take you out and expose you to a new environment that you're not used to. And for me personally, it's always a very unique experience to see that I'm only just like a smaller part of the bigger picture, and to get that sense of being not too much important, because like in modern society we always say like we're very much egocentric and like take ourselves very much important. And in wilderness you get a lot of time to draw back to simple ideas and to draw back to essentials. So when you're out there, you have time on your own, just in a very small group sometimes, so you can just like sit back and see what's important for you and what we might take too serious in modern society. And that's something that's achieved through the wilderness program at UWC USA.
Now, another decline that wilderness helps to counteract is the decline of skill and care due to the weakened tradition of craftsmanship in modern society. Now, 100 years ago, a lot of the stuff that you would use and interact with and even eat would be someone who was a craftsman making that, someone who truly cared about what was going into it. Now, today, pretty much everything that we have around us is something that's mass-produced and isn't cared about. For example, most of the clothes that we're wearing are stuff that's mass-produced. Indeed, going to a boarding school, the food that we eat on a daily basis is something that isn't necessarily custom-made food, that's something that's really being put a lot of thought and care into. Now, on wilderness, you have to put skill and care into things. If you don't have the skills, for example, first aid skills, then that is going to directly affect someone's life. There's, again, no adults on expeditions. Students are responsible for having the skills and the craftsmanship to make an excellent expedition, but also taking care and preparing for expeditions. We have to take preparations, in fact, weeks in advance. For our orientation expedition, which is in August, we start planning for that in May, because you really have to make sure that there's enough care put into it that we have everything we need. You have to have the food, you have to have the resources, you have to have the medical, because everything you have is in your back. And if you don't take the care to prepare, it's going to directly affect your quality of life. So by tying craftsmanship, which is the input, into the output of quality of life, wilderness teaches us to put skill and care into everything we do, rather than just allowing mass-produced ideas and objects run our lives.
So similar to that, the decline of self-discipline. So nowadays we very much we have very many stimulants and tranquilizers. So we oftentimes don't have to think for ourselves but in wilderness, you really have to be self-disciplined. And you have to go on because everything you do has a greater effect on your team. Even though it's just a very small community, it shows you that it's still essential to see the impact you have in a community. And through the lack of self-discipline in our modern life, that's oftentimes shown. Like in wilderness, you cannot do that. You have to be self-disciplined, and you have to act against the stimulants and tranquilizers you have in modern life.
Yeah, and then the final decline, and I personally think the most important decline for us to talk about, is the decline of compassion. Now, Kurt Hahn wrote these declines long before a lot of the modern tools that we have, like Facebook. Yet, I think it's directly applicable today. He says it's decline of compassion due to the unseemly haste with which modern life is conducted. Now, today we can interact with many, many more people each day. We can interact with potentially hundreds of people in very small transactions. Yet, very few of those people are people we're truly thinking about, caring about. In fact, there was a presentation earlier today about that very idea that communities should have direct engagement with each other rather than this large, broad-based, small transactions that Facebook and other such things encourage. Now, wilderness, we take all that modern tools and modern civilization away. Instead, there's just maybe 10, but usually around 6 students who you were with for an expedition. And those are the only 6 people you're talking to for 2 to 3 days. So that really teaches us that we have to care about them, not just as a matter of sociality, but also a matter just of safety. If you don't have good expedition behavior, if you're not having compassion for your fellow team members, you might not catch when somebody's feeling genuinely sick. You might not catch that somebody's getting dehydrated. You might not understand when somebody is indeed in a life-threatening condition. Because we have to be caring about each other throughout the day and be learning about each other. Indeed, through this intensity of interaction, which wilderness brings us, but modern life doesn't, I've both made some of my best friends, but also turned people who I might have had feuds with in the past into friends. Because you can't have that on an expedition. It's simply unsafe and unsocial. So you have to be able to truly understand people over the course of an expedition and thus develop compassion for them. Because once you understand anyone, you can have a degree of compassion for anyone. And the wilderness allows us to attain that.
So wilderness not only helps us in like crossing cultures, it also helps on the stages, like in the 4th stage to become an effective leader and to act against the declines of youth we just presented. Our wilderness teacher at TEDxYouth USA always says there's like humans were around this much amount of time, and only this small we lived in civilization. And to draw back to like the basics and the roots that we came from is something very essential that I think wilderness very much encompasses effectively.
Yeah.
So on a wall of a Belgian family right before World War II, there was written on it, plus est en vous, which means there's more in you. And Kurt Hahn drew from that and said, there's more in you than you think. And Kurt Hahn's basic idea is that you should challenge yourself all the time, and that you should take your weaknesses and face them and learn from them, and put an emphasis on that. And through wilderness at TEDxYouth USA, that is done very much effectively.
Yeah, I like to think that wilderness takes away much of what we have, but in doing so allows the best of humanity to be brought out in us. So we take out civilization to show our humanity. Thank you.